The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the forest floor. A chill wind blew through the trees, carrying with it a strange scent that seemed to linger in the air. As the figure appeared, shrouded in a long black cloak, it seemed to move with a purpose, as if it had a destination in mind. As the figure approached the edge of a clearing, it stopped, gazing at the small stone circle that stood in the center of the space. The circle was surrounded by a ring of tall trees that seemed to loom over the area, creating an eerie and ominous atmosphere. As the figure stepped into the circle, a chill ran down its spine. Suddenly, a voice spoke from the shadows, warning of a dark past and the trail of death that lay ahead. The figure hesitated, considering the warning, but ultimately refused to turn back. With a deep breath, the figure stepped forward and began to follow the trail of death. The path was winding and treacherous, the ground littered with fallen branches and decaying leaves. As the figure moved deeper into the forest, the darkness seemed to grow more intense, the trees thicker and more foreboding. At times, the trail seemed to disappear altogether, swallowed up by the dense undergrowth, but the figure persisted, driven by an unshakable determination to reach the end of the trail, no matter what lay ahead. As the night wore on, the figure grew weary and its footsteps began to falter. The trail seemed to lead nowhere, and the voice from the shadows seemed to grow louder, warning of danger and death. But still, the figure pressed on, driven by an inexplicable force that refused to let it turn back. Finally, after what felt like hours, the trail led to a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an old cabin, its windows dark and foreboding. The figure approached the cabin cautiously, sensing that danger lurked within. As the figure stepped over the threshold, the air grew cold and still. A voice whispered from the shadows, warning of the darkness that lay within. But the figure was undaunted, driven by an unshakable determination to uncover the truth. As the figure moved deeper into the cabin, it became clear that the voice had spoken true. The walls were lined with eerie symbols and strange artifacts, hinting at a dark and ancient power that lay hidden within. With trembling hands, the figure reached out and touched one of the symbols. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the room, and the figure was consumed by a sense of overwhelming dread. As the light faded, the figure realized with horror that it had unleashed an ancient evil, one that would haunt the forest for generations to come. The trail of death had led to a fate far worse than anything the figure could have imagined. As the figure followed the trail of death, the darkness seemed to grow more intense. The strange smell in the air grew stronger, like the unmistakable scent of blood. The figure looked down and saw that the ground was stained with a dark red liquid, as if it were bleeding. Despite the growing sense of unease, the figure persisted, following the trail of blood deeper into the forest. Finally, they emerged into a clearing, surrounded by a ring of tall trees. In the center of the clearing stood a large stone altar, on which was a strange symbol that sent shivers down the figure's spine. Without hesitation, the figure stepped forward and touched the symbol. Suddenly, the ground began to shake violently, and a deafening roar filled the air. The figure stepped back, fear gripping their heart, as a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was the creature that had been following the trail of death all along, a terrifying beast with razor-sharp claws and glowing red eyes. The figure stood frozen, unable to move as the creature slowly advanced towards them. But then, the figure remembered the warnings of the voice from the shadows, warning of the danger and death that lay ahead. With a deep breath, the figure gathered their courage and drew a weapon from their cloak. The creature lunged forward, but the figure was ready, meeting its attack with a fierce determination. The battle was fierce, with each blow ringing out like thunder in the stillness of the forest. But finally, with a final blow, the creature lay defeated at the figure's feet. The trail of death had led them to a terrifying encounter, but the figure had emerged victorious. As the figure emerged from the clearing, The first light of dawn began to touch the sky. The forest seemed to come alive once more, as birdsong filled the air and the gentle rustling of leaves whispered in the breeze. With a sense of relief and a newfound respect for the dangers that lay within the forest, the figure turned and made their way back along the trail of death, their journey finally at an end. As the figure and the creature stared at each other, the tension in the air was palpable. The creature spoke in a deep, menacing voice, warning the figure to turn back and leave this place before it was too late. But the figure refused to heed the warning, determined to continue following the trail of fear. Suddenly, the creature lunged forward, its massive form bearing down on the figure. The figure stepped back, heart racing, as the creature roared in anger. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, the figure turned and ran as fast as they could, following the trail of fear. The creature pursued relentlessly, its heavy footfalls pounding the ground behind them. The figure could feel its breath on their neck, and they knew they had to keep moving, or they would be caught. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the figure reached the end of the trail. They stopped and turned back, expecting the creature to be right behind them. But to their surprise, the creature had stopped just short of the end of the trail. It stood there, watching the figure with a mix of curiosity and concern, as if trying to convey a message. The figure felt a sudden understanding wash over them, and they nodded in acknowledgement. With a newfound respect for the dangers of the forest, the figure turned and made their way back home. As they walked, they thought about the warning the creature had offered and realized the true meaning of the trail of fear. It wasn't just a path of terror and danger, but a reminder of the importance of respect for the natural world and the need to tread carefully in unknown territories. As the figure returned home, they were filled with a sense of enlightenment and a newfound understanding of the trail of death. The experience had been terrifying, but it had also been liberating. The figure now knew that the trail was not just a path of fear and danger, but a path of knowledge and enlightenment. Determined to continue their journey, the figure set out once again, this time following the trail of knowledge. They were no longer afraid, for they knew that the path could lead them to a greater understanding of the world and themselves. As they walked, the figure began to notice things they had never seen before. They saw the intricate patterns of the leaves on the trees, the way the sunlight danced through the branches, and the gentle rustling of the wind. They saw the beauty in the natural world that they had previously overlooked. With each step, the figure's understanding grew, and they felt a sense of clarity and purpose. They knew that they were on the right path, and that their journey would lead them to a greater understanding of themselves and the world around them. As the figure continued on their journey, they encountered challenges and obstacles, but they faced them with newfound courage and determination, knowing that they were on a path of enlightenment. And with each obstacle they overcame, their understanding grew deeper, and they became stronger and wiser. Finally, the figure reached the end of the trail. They stood at the edge of a great cliff, overlooking a vast expanse of wilderness. As they gazed out at the world before them, the figure felt a sense of awe and wonder. They had come so far, and yet there was still so much to learn and discover. With a deep sense of gratitude and humility, the figure turned and began the journey back home, carrying with them the knowledge and understanding that they had gained on the trail of death. The figure felt a sense of gratitude and relevance towards the trail. They had been transformed by it, and they knew that their journey had been necessary for their growth. They felt a deep respect for the mysteries of the forest and the wisdom it held. As the figure made their way back home, they carried the knowledge they had gained with them. They knew that they would never forget their journey, and that the lessons they had learned would stay with them forever. The figure knew that there would always be more to discover and learn, and they were eager to continue on their path of growth and understanding. They had been changed by the trail of death, and they were grateful for the experience. The figure knew that their journey had not been in vain. They had found the courage to confront their fears and had emerged stronger and wiser because of it. They realized that sometimes the most challenging paths could lead to the most rewarding experiences in life. The figure's newfound wisdom and understanding made them see the world in a different light. They were more patient, empathetic, and understanding of others, and they carried this newfound perspective with them in their daily life. The figure knew that they had grown from their experience on the trail of death and that they would continue to grow and evolve as they traveled through life. They were grateful for the journey and the lessons it had taught them. They knew that they would always carry the trail's teachings with them as they continued on their path towards greater knowledge and understanding.